Hey Scrappers, it's Vanessa here with another process video, and today I am just using some Project Life cards and some embellishments from a Project Life kit to create a layout. So I basically just did a stash dive and grabbed a Project Life kit, and I decided I was just going to use that pretty much primarily, as well as that Chamel sticker book, to create a layout. And the first thing that you see me doing here is I've taken a piece of the Basil Marshmallow cardstock and I sprayed some water on the paper first. And then I have taken 3 colors. One is a Delusions, one is a Shimmer, and one is a Lindy Stamp Gang. And I am just going to create a background on this white cardstock. Now, because this is the Marshmallow cardstock, I am taking the lazy way and I did not put any gesso on this. So it actually takes water and these sort of sprays pretty well. I do get a little bit of warping on the paper, but it doesn't really bother me that much, and I don't want to take the time to gesso generally, so I'm okay with a little bit of warping. So basically here I'm just spraying the inks down, and then I am sprinkling a little bit of water to get the Dilutions, especially that purple, to react with the water. Dilutions is a lot like the Tim Holtz Distress inks in the fact that it reacts the same with water and it gives you those fun splotches. A lot of this background does get covered up, and you'll see here I go kind of back and forth a few times with the inks because I'm trying to balance the colors out and get sort of just a fun, eclectic kind of background overall, because I know that my layout is going to pretty much go in the center of this background paper, and that a lot of that mixed media is going to get cut off, or covered up, I should say. Once I had my background how I wanted, I went ahead and set it aside to dry. And I took all of the Project Life cards that I pulled out and I just kind of went through and just grabbed a selection of the cards. And I decided, because this pack was pinks and greens and purples and gold, that was my color scheme. So super easy. And because I am not a huge fan of the rounded corners, I did go ahead and I just cut off all the rounded edges to make basically like cardstock pieces of pattern paper to use on this layout, and that way I didn't have to have rounded corners on anything, and it gave me lots of pattern paper to put on this layout, which you'll see here in a second. I want it to be able to reuse down the road those journaling spots, so I just cut those out of the Project Life cards as well, so that then I have those for future projects. And here you see my photo, which is of a hippo. And this is a photo from the Animal Kingdom. And one of my favorite things to do is to go on the safari at Animal Kingdom. And I love to get to see the hippos. Now, normally you get to see them when you go and see them. They're typically underwater. Not a lot of times have I ever seen them on land, and this time we were lucky enough to actually see them on land, and they were just lounging and being very lazy in the sun. So yeah, they're pretty cute. And so I basically took all those Project Life cards and layered them all up, and those became my photo mats. And that is the only pattern paper, I guess you could call it, that is going to go on this layout. And I didn't pull any other pattern paper from my stash. I'm just going to reuse bits and pieces of those Project Life cards and just get them used up and out of that pack and on a layout. I don't do Project Life really. And so for me, this is a great way to use those cards because I've bought several of the collections, but I don't really ever use them for a Project Life style layout. And so you'll see I did add some extra texture to the layout by ripping the top and bottom of the layout. So, and behind each of those ripped sections of the cardstock, I am putting 2 pieces of Project Life cards in each of the torn parts of the cardstock so that I can fill in the gap and add that texture. Here is also where I am bringing in that Schamel sticker book, and I'm basically taking a piece of white cardstock from my scrap bin, and I'm just going to put these stickers on that white cardstock and cut them out, because that gives them a little bit more stability and allows me to then, you know, play with where I want to put them on the layout before actually committing to sticking them down. And these are pretty thin, so the little bit of cardstock helps add a little bulk to them. Pretty much how I have the layout here is exactly how it looks in the finished product. So I've put the 2 clusters with the hearts and the banners, and then the Love This Day I cut from a Project Life card as well. And I also took this other Project Life card that I'm putting the title on right now and did my journaling with my typewriter. And I decided, because hippos are lazy and they are laying out in the sun, just lounging that day, the layout title is perfectly called Lazy Days, of course. And, you know, my journaling kind of talks about how they're one of my favorite things to see at Animal Kingdom. When we go see the animals, I love to see the hippos, and how some days I wouldn't mind being a hippo and having no cares in the world and just being able to lounge around and do nothing. So that's kind of what my journaling is talking about here. So once I get my title down, I am going to go off camera so you don't have to watch all that gluing, and stick everything down before coming back with the sort of final touches that go on this layout. But like I said, that is how the main clusters of this come together. And here you see I've glued the hearts and those banners together, so it was easy to then, if I wanted to move them around, I had the option. I did decide to grab some Tim Holtz Distress Oxide ink, and I believe the color is Seedless Preserves that I'm using. And I did go ahead and ink everything off camera, and now I'm just doing these flowers. I did go ahead and ink everything with that just to kind of bring it all together, because these flowers were sort of on white cardstock and they were slightly different colored than some of the Project Life cards, but that kind of ties it all together when you use that, you know, an ink around the edges. And so I went ahead and did that. Now, to finish off the layout, I did go ahead and I'm pulling out some sequins from my stash, and I'm basically taking and finding in this little bag of sequins, I'm picking out all the colors that are represented in those Project Life cards. So I'm going for a green, a couple different shades of pink, and one purpley kind of color, just to represent all the colors that I have in those Project Life cards on this layout. And here you see I'm just putting them sort of in a row, so I'm not even doing sort of like the cluster of 3 that I typically do with my enamel dots. I actually decided to do a row of 5, and so each grouping will have a row of 5. And that last one that I'm working on above that Love This Day, I actually moved those down to right underneath the day instead of up at the top. And those become sort of my enamel dot that I typically put on my page. Apart from that, to finish up this layout, I do grab 2 of these tiny word stickers from the Schamel sticker book. And one says Love This, and I believe the other one that you'll see here in a second that I'm going to pull says Magical. And once I put those down, basically that completes this layout. So if you are like me and you have a ton of Project Life cards, I highly suggest just taking them, and if you don't like the rounded corners like I do, cut the rounded corners off and go ahead and use them for photo mats. And then if they have journaling boxes or some embellishment that you like on them, cut it out and use it on your scrapbook pages. It's a great way to get things like that used up out of your stash and on a page while you still like them. And so guys, with that, here are the still photos, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.